Hikaru will have extended his lead as we get ready.
What's your
to
prediction?
that we're going to be following this game very closely.
You got Naka?
Prediction.
Oh, Naka as they
I'm
built
taking
to
Magnus.
play
I'm taking
so
Magnus.
well.
Who are you taking? He's taking Magnus.
Okay, I'll take Hikaru.
All right, I'll take Magnus too. I didn't want to gang up against Hikaru, so. We started off with an interesting opening. Eric, do you have the game?
One moment,
I'm
about to get it. I do have the game over here, but it's...
So not a Roy Lopez Yasser you'll be happy to see.
I'm very happy to see.
but really busting down some theory here.
Whoa. Whoa, what has happened? Holy cow. I'm just getting my board set up. Sorry for the delay on my side. Naturally, it was the very last game.
All right, here you go.
Declined. Opening. Bishop f4 takes on c4, e3, b5. Wow, knight takes b5, check, and knight d5. And the players.
Queen d2, so
look at this knight e2 move.
So yeah, just slow down for 1 second. So
No
knight
kidding.
e2, because there's no place that we can actually put the knight where pawn takes b4 would be that bad. So he's playing knight e2 to try to grab that bishop on f4.
Which he did. And bishop b7, and I think we're up to date. Perhaps not. The players have been playing very
And so we're actually
very quickly.
even in pawns at the moment after all those tactical flurries. But of course, c4 being a weakness, but black having a very strong bishop on b7.
Eyeballing the g2 pawn.
And what do you like here, Eric? Whose game do you prefer?
I prefer white's position. The c4 pawn to me looks like the most vulnerable, but black is playing against this d4 pawn. f4 not really much of a weakness. Black has activity and some pressure in the center, but I think white is still a little bit better here.
All right. Rook f8 b8. What?
But I'm just happy to see kind of a new position. to be.
Me too.
Oh, I like those Roy Lopez. They always turn out so fun. So rook b8, hoping that at some point this rook will uncover an attack on b4. Obviously, it looks a little strange, but the rook on a8 is already doing a job defending a7. So Magnus decided to, stack the rooks up there in the corner. And now Nakamura adding pressure to the c pawn. He just played a rook on a to c1.
Rook a c1. All right.
Yeah.
I'm assuming bishop d5 at some moment.
Note that if he ever tried knight c4, he has to worry about queen d5 last move, and that would attack both the knight and the pawn on g2. And now that the bishop is defended on b7, we would have time to play queen takes c4.
Yep.
So rook c1 actually brings that back into the position.
There was always a knight takes c4, knight e3 kind of defense. You were mentioning the double attack against the c4 and g2.
Right, but we could have taken and then played queen c6 maybe, but then you'd have bishop f1.
Yeah.
So.
Exactly.
I'm liking white's position still. The problem is, okay, for either side, a lot of the endgames here are quite drawish because they have so many weak pawns. It's hard to convert. But in this position, I think Magnus played queen d5, now bishop f1, and I don't know, maybe f3 coming in, and then you can take on c4.
Well, or simply knight takes c4 and recapture with the rook.
Don't recapture with the bishop, yes.
No, I won't do that.
Queen takes g2 mate.
Mate on the spot.
That's right. So why bishop f1 instead of bishop f3?
I guess he didn't like queen b5 as a response. Bishop f3, queen b5, I think, is what Hikaru wanted to avoid.
Okay, because instinctually you're kind of, the bishop on b7 seems stronger than the one in f1. So.
But you can play f3 and then the bishop on f1 just pressures c4 and there's no pressure on the g2 pawn.
I see, so you think that's coming up next?
I think he might value the bishop more than black's after f3, yeah.
And now a difficult decision for Magnus, because if he plays the move bishop a6, queen c3, again, white just piles up the pressure against the c4 pawn. That c4 pawn is going to fall, and white will be a pawn ahead. The question is, should Magnus play a7, a5, hoping to get his rook on a8 in the game? Remember, there's still a weakness on the c7 square as well. So Hikaru looking pretty good. He'll be satisfied with the outcome of the opening.
Indeed, and it looks like
Magnus has
Magnus
gone
taking
into
a
the
deep
thing.
thing. Yeah, that suggests that he agrees with you, that he thinks
He's
this is a
not-
critical moment to find some counterplay.
He's not satisfied. The world champion definitely fiddling with his pieces there.
Yes, he's fiddling with his bishop. Is that a tell?
Yes.
Fiddling with the bishop?
Yeah, well, just the piece, a little bit nervousness here. And
If you say
Hikaru,
fiddle with the bishop one more time, people are going to start to get upset. But he is doing it again. What?
and he doesn't seem to be thinking
A
about
full
the-
minute below in the clock. Also,
Right.
An interesting thing is that, I mean, people talk about the score that's heavily favored for Magnus, but in a lot of the recent games in all formats, draws have been really dominant. In the last
Yeah.
2 years, no matter what the opening is, these two players have been neutralizing each other, and Hikaru has been improving his score just by drawing a lot, but he really has been controlling the positions a lot better than he used to.
Excellent point, and I think that's exactly why Nakamura is not as intimidated by Magnus, because he's thinking like the last couple of years. He's not a math statistics guy who's looking at like the score, including games from 5 years ago.
Right.
He's saying recently I've been doing okay, and that's what matters.
The trend is my friend. It's in my favor. I've been scoring against Magnus instead of losing so many games as happened earlier in their matchups.
Now, he hasn't
And
been
a
winning much.
big think
Yes.
by Magnus, and the best he could produce was just to make Luft, h7, h6. Hikaru said, well, now's the time. I'll
Confidently.
take the pawn. Knight takes c4, knight takes c4 has been played. Rook takes c4
He
box.
cleverly avoided checkmate.
Very clever. And
As you said.
Now, if you
Okay.
can, I think you want to play rook c5 and b5 as white, and then double rooks on the c file, put pressure against c7. So you can achieve b5. That might be.
that's a dominating position, what you've just described, and it's definitely something Magnus has to avoid. Magnus dropped back with his queen, recognizing that rook c5 was essentially unstoppable. He's preparing the move bishop to a d5, which is actually what happened. After queen d6, what did
Rook
Hikaru
c5,
play?
I believe, yes.
Or b5?
Hikaru played rook c5, bishop
Or-
d5, and b5, and this is a good position. This is just good for white. You're
Absolutely.
putting pressure on c7, bishop on f1. Now we see like it does a very, very good job protecting g2. I'm not even sure Hikaru is going to play f3. It protects b5, protects g2, and allows white time to, let's say, play rook d to c1, queen to c3, triple. And despite being double pawns, it's really effective in fixing c7 and a7.
And Magnus thought it was necessary, therefore, to play c6 and get rid of the potential weakness. And we saw Nakamura quickly recapture. Yeah, you got us caught up with the
Maybe
current
now
game.
queen e3, queen e5 as a way of trying to undouble or improve the queen position for white. But really a pawn up for Nakamura, a second consecutive game this tournament where he is pushing Magnus.
And let's catch up with the current position, because Magnus rather is trying to get some counterplay.
And he has
Suddenly
gone
works
for
on
queen.
the
He has gone
D-file.
for queen e5. Magnus probably doesn't want to take because d4 is a target, but
But he has taken.
He has taken. Well,
He has taken.
That
No,
was-
Magnus only 50 seconds in the clock.
now after d takes e5.
He's played g5, desperate for some counterplay here, trying to.
Well, this is just very, very nice for white. White's extra pawn
Yep.
has now been undoubled.
right,
thank
ever
you.
since c6, right?
And everything since
rook-
g5, I was thinking more.
The other set of pawns,
The
yeah.
other set of pawns.
g5 is a good move because Magnus does want to activate the king, maybe improve it.
To f5, for instance.
I'm doubtful. What about rook c3 to g3?
Rook c7 instead.
He played
Nakamura
rook
has traded off a
C7.
pair of rooks, king g7, rook d7,
Well, I like
rook
rook c7.
Rook d7, rook d7.
And now he's played rook to a1. So
just fixing the. Oops.
I'm aiming perhaps to go to a6.
Well, just keeping the black rook honest. Now the black rook is going to be tied down to the a7 pawn for quite
Bishop
some time.
f3. Oh wait, somehow g4. We've got a few more moves in.
Yeah.
So Magnus did activate the king. Hikaru felt it necessary to play g4.
Stop king f5, exactly. And now h3. And
but now black is very active because despite a7 being a weakness, if black gets a rook to d1, I mean, sacrifices pawn a7, gets the rook to d1, that's a very annoying pin on the bishop on f1.
Right.
But king h2, king g3 is on...
Well, right now...
If king h2, rook
he's played rook d2 and he's read that properly to stop king h2.
Why does that stop king h2?
That's a good question. You can still play king h2, and what do you play? Bishop,
move.
I guess bishop e2 after king h2.
King h2, bishop e2,
Yes.
going into a rook ending, gotcha.
Oh, yeah, that's a good move. So instead,
you-
Naka's played rook a3.
Nice tickle against that bishop that is dominating
So
in the
now-
position. The bishop has dropped back to d5,
Yes, back to d5, exactly.
and now there's a bishop d3 check. And get the king out of that mating net. Go bishop d3 check, king f...
So-
king f1 walks into rook d3.
Yeah.
I apologize.
So pointing out that we can't play rook takes a7. Rook d1 is just...
Well,
We can try it,
We
but...
can definitely
we can try
try
it, but
it.
now we'd be compelled
Rook
to play rook
d1,
c7 or rook a4.
Then rook a4, and now maybe bishop
Oh.
f3, trying to play bishop e2, and it's probably a perpetual after rook a2, bishop.
By the way, Hikaru dropped back with the rook after bishop d5. He did not capture on
Well-
a7. He dropped back with rook a1.
And then definitely Magnus would be happy with the draw here. He's just played bishop to f3.
Back to f3.
That's right. So the idea again being this clever idea that if king h2, bishop e2, because then bishop e2, rook e2, and you can't hold on to all the pawns.
That is true. That is true. But once again, let's take a look at that move. Rook a3, bishop d5, rook to
a7. So rook d1 threatening bishop c4, which would of course
I
be
want to
devastating.
play rook c7.
So you have to play rook c7 or rook
Rook
a4.
c7, bishop f3 to play bishop e2.
And instead he went.
rook e2.
And instead,
Yeah.
though, and now we could play bishop e4, perhaps, but instead it was f3 that's been played by Nakamura. So
That's
Nakamura this chose a different strategy of playing f3 to blunt that bishop.
Problem is the g5 pawn is so good, it fixes all those pawns on light squares, and now after Magnus played f6, he's going to just try to walk the king into f4 to g3, but it's really unpleasant that this one pawn on g5 controls 3 of white's pawns.
Well, if we get caught up with the
absolutely.
current position, we see that
Bishop takes f3. He didn't go for the king e5 right away.
It is comfortable for Magnus. He has
Yes.
a very good
Oh my God,
position
no.
now. Rook on d2.
And now
active
Nakamura's
king,
got 11
great
seconds
bishop.
left.
It's a position that your up a pawn is white, but it's much easier to play as black. And we've seen, I think Fabiano made himself in kind of a similar situation, just having a very active rook and bishop for black when he played against Nakamura.
and it looks
Yeah.
like they've been repeating moves actually a couple of times. Nakamura getting kind of nervous. He's got 13 seconds.
This is losing, guys. Rook
He's
b2 here
shuffling.
wins. Rook b2 is winning.
Rook b2
Yes,
is
if you play,
winning.
yes,
And
according to
that's-
Andrews,
he has played
minus
rook b2 if you
minus
catch up
4.
with the,
There's a
position.
mating net eventually, or a zugzwang.
This
Yes,
is the
yes.
current position on the board.
Yes, this is over. The thing is, black can also just push the e pawn.
He's played rook d4, king g3. So show us what the threat is here. Just pushing. He's just pushing the e pawn up.
He's
That's
pushing
right.
the e pawn, and he also has threats of rook h2 and rook h1 mate, and you can't stop both. Just domination, domination, and this is one of those. It's very similar in some ways of that other game.
Between Hikaru and
Yeah.
Fabiano.
Well, the pawn on g5. The pawn on g5
Now,
is amazing.
resignation by Hikaru Nakamura after the move e3 with e2 coming in the
Wow,
game.
exactly.
Wow.
And now a massive turnaround there as Magnus Carlsen dances.
Closes the gap.
Did you see him dancing a little bit as he walked off the
Yeah,
stage?
he had a
was
big grin on
pumped.
his face.
He was definitely pumped.
Those are
He was
those.